Hi there everyone, this is Ashley with Marshflower Studio. In this video I'm going to show you guys how I make these little extra mini Among Us crewmates. If you like the little Among Us guys, make sure you hit like for the video and subscribe so you can see future videos, and don't forget to check out the past videos. Lots of cute fun things to make. Most of them don't take very long, so they're easy projects that you can get done in one sitting, and do all kinds of different fun colors and whatnot with. So for these guys, I am using my 4mm hook because I will be putting these on keychains. My tiny tornado toddlers are checking in. So I use the 4mm hook when I'm doing my keychain size pieces, just so that they're a little bit tighter. They're gonna get pulled on, held on to, thrown around. It just makes them feel a little bit more secure to me. So personal choice. I am using just a regular worsted weight yarn. For the one I'm making for the video, I'm going to use orange because I have a red and yellow already. And at some point I will be making all of the other colors. But this is a pretty quick little project. We're going to start with our magic circle and our first leg. We're going to do 6 single crochets in the magic circle, and then we're going to do 3 rows of single crochet, so 18 single crochets, my goodness, total. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. So I'm going to do my chain 1 and cut my yarn here. So I have my first leg all done. We'll do another leg just like that one. So 6 single crochets in the magic circle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 18 single crochets, so we have 3 rows of 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. I want to make sure that our magic circles are closed up nice and tight. Alright, so we're not going to cut our working yarn from the second leg. We're going to chain 1, and then we're going to connect to that first leg. So this was the last stitch that we made. Bring that a little bit closer. We have our last stitch we're going to go into the very next one and do our 6 single crochets around that leg. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then we're going to do a single crochet in this chain that we put in the middle. So you just kind of have to pick a loop to pull through. So single crochet there. And then this was the last single crochet from this leg. So we're going to move and do our next one in this one right beside it. So we'll do 6 around this leg. 1, 2, oops, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And we're going to need to put another single crochet in here in that middle where the chain is. So like I said, it can be a little hard to kind of figure out where your stitch goes. So this over here is where your first single crochet for that leg is. So I'm going to try to put my single crochet for the chain under this loop right here. So I don't want to miss any of the single crochets that are on the leg. Uh-oh. My yarn needle fell off my table. And it can be a little hard kind of getting it into that right spot. There we go. All right. So I'm going to do my first and second single crochet for this, whoops, row. I'm going to put my little stitch marker in here so I don't have to count every stitch. And there we go. When we attach legs like this, most of the time you're going to end up with a hole kind of where that attachment is. It's a little bit bigger than the holes for the rest of your stitches. So I like to take that yarn that I fastened off that leg with and just run a couple little stitches through there to kind of close up that hole. And then I'll just tie it to one of the starting tails from the legs. A little square knot. That'll hold it in place, keep it from coming undone. And then I'm going to tuck these tails down in the legs. And I've got my handy stuffing stick here. And most of the bags of stuffing that you buy, they'll have one of these stuck down in the stuffing for you. And for a long time I just threw them away because I was like, I got one chopstick, what is that about? But then I actually found out that that's what it was for and used it and was like, oh, well, that's much easier. So now I keep them around. All right, for 6 rows, we're just doing single crochet. So 6 rows, and then we will start to work on our decrease for closing up the top of our little crewmate here. Especially in that chain one area between the legs, make sure that you are getting all of the single crochets and not accidentally letting one kind of get skipped over. Sometimes they can kind of hide from you. So in a previous video, I made a slightly larger Among Us crewmate, and actually I have it right here. So this one is 5.5 inches tall, and you can kind of see the size comparison. I've got my ruler here too. For these guys, we're looking 2.5 on the little ones. So they're about half the size. Having this hanging from a bag or a, zipper would be a little much. So I also have these slightly smaller versions that are much better for zipper pulls and keychains or anywhere else you want to hang them. And if you really like the shape, but you're not super into the Among Us game, you can always do these and put, just one eye, turn it into a little monster like this guy. You could do the solid colors, and before you close up the top of it, you could sew on your little face shield and put, 2 eyes and then embroider a little mouth on there. And just change it up a little bit. You can add hair. You could add little clothes. You could add some little arms if you really wanted to. So it's just a really nice kind of base shape. It's easy to make, easy to customize. Once you've got your first one kind of done, you can kind of go in and decide if you want to do color changes and give them clothes. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One more row for me. So we'll have 6 rows of single crochet. And also keep in mind, the weight of the yarn and the size of your hook is going to change the size of your little creations. So if you wanted to do some that were even smaller, go with a smaller yarn size and a smaller hook. If you wanted some that were bigger, you can obviously make them with any of the bulkier yarns, the velvets, the fleeces, or just a chunky yarn, and just use, a hook size that works for that. So now that I have my 16 rows, we're going to do 5 single crochets and then a decrease. 2, 3, 4, and 5. So in one of the other videos I've done previously, someone commented that it looked like I was doing an extra yarn over when I decrease, and that some of my decreases were going through both loops and some were going through the front loops only. And I'm sorry if that was a little unclear to some of you guys as well. So the single crochets do go through both loops. The invisible decrease that I do, and you may do decreases differently, whatever works for you is fine. The decreases I do, I go under the front loop of the next stitch, I go under the front loop of the stitch after that, I yarn over, pull through both of those, and then I yarn over and pull through the 2 loops that are on my hook. I know there are different ways to decrease, different ways people like to do it, so they think, you know, it looks better, but that's how I do a decrease. If you do yours differently, that's totally fine. Do them how you're comfortable, okay? So we'll do 5 more single crochets. And another decrease. So under the front loop, under the front loop, yarn over and pull through both, yarn over and pull through both. Okay. So at this point, our last little bit here is going to be 6 decreases, but we need to get a little bit of stuffing in our little crewmate here. So we don't want them to end up completely flat. All right, that is more than enough. I'll take my stitch marker out. So 6 decreases. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then I'll do a slip stitch under the next stitch and kind of fasten that off. We'll cut our working yarn and pull it through. We're going to slide these guys out of the way a little bit. Put my yarn through my yarn needle. If you haven't done this before, this is how I like to close up this kind of last row for these guys. We're going to go under the front loop only from the outside towards the inside. And we're going to do that for all of these single crochets that are on this last row here. This very last one. And then we'll pull that tight. And I like to stick my needle back down through the center of that magic circle. And it makes a nice clean finish here. Okay, so I'm going to leave this kind of hanging out to the side for a minute. For our face shield, I'm going to use white. Some people use gray. Again, completely personal preference, up to you which color you want to use. We are going to do a chain, so we'll need a slip stitch, or not a slip stitch, a slip knot. And we'll do a chain 4. And then in the second chain from the hook, we're going to do 2 or a single crochet, and then the next chain a single crochet. In that very first chain we made, we're going to do 3 single crochets. So 1, 2, and 3, all together there. We're going to do 1 single crochet in that middle stitch, and then in the last we're going to do 2 single crochets, And then where we had our first single crochet from where we turned, we're going to just do a little slip stitch into that to kind of even out our row here. And then we will fasten off and cut enough of a tail so that you can sew it to your little crewmate. So I will, and as always, I'm not much for kind of weaving in my ends, so I'll leave this little tail hanging out where I start to sew this on, and I'll just sew around the edge until I get back over to here. I'll tie my knot and stick my ends through. So that's the little face shield. And for the backpack that we're going to do on his back, I have two different ways that I've done it. As you can kind of see, the one on the red crewmate definitely is way more puffed up, and the one on the yellow crewmate is a bit more flat. Okay, so they're made the same way. I'll just explain the difference kind of at the end, because that's where the difference is in these two little backpacks. So we will use our crewmate color, and we're going to do chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to turn and single crochet 3 back across. We'll chain 1 and turn. We'll do 3 single crochets across. So we'll do a chain 1 and turn, and then again 3 single crochets across. And because these guys are little, we don't want their backpacks to be too overwhelming. Okay, so I'm going to do a chain 1, and then I'm going to do single crochets down the sides and across the bottom, and then back up the other side, just so that the edge of this backpack is a little bit more neat and clean. So do 1, 2, 3. In the corner, we'll do a chain, and then do 3 across the bottom. 1, 2, 3. We'll do a chain, and then 3 up this other side. We'll do our chain, and then I'm going to do a slip stitch into this first single crochet from that top row. Okay. Now, this is how I made the yellow backpack that's a little bit more flat. Okay. If you want to make the more puffed out backpack, all you have to do is, instead of doing a slip stitch here to end, you'll just do another row of single crochet all the way around and put little chain 1s in each corner, and that'll give you room to put a little bit of stuffing underneath the backpack, and that'll make it poof out like this red one does. Okay, I prefer the kind of flatter backpack, so I'm going to fasten off with enough yarn to sew it to the back of my little dude here. And when I sew this backpack on, I'm going to put this starter tail kind of underneath, and that gives it a little bit of padding in there. I'm going to go kind of underneath those top loops and just single crochet in between. Okay, that helps kind of show the difference between, you know, the body of your crewmate and the edge of that backpack. All right, so I'm going to go under 2, and then I'm going to go back 1, under 2, and then back 1, under 2, and back 1, under 2, and back 1, under 2, doing this particular method, I find just makes the edge of where I'm sewing things down quite a bit more neat. Before I was just going kind of over 1, under 1, and you'll get this kind of zigzag edging that'll show up, which is fine in some cases, but most of the time we don't want it to be kind of zigzag. All right, almost back around. And don't forget, when we started, we went under 2 and only back 1. So we'll have to go all the way to that one and come back so that it also has a loop over top. So this is the one that we went under this one and under this one, and then we came back here, so this one doesn't have a loop across of it right now. So I need to make sure I get that one covered here. All right, so I'm all the way around. The ending thread from where I finished off the top is where I'm going to poke this one out at, and I'll tie in my little finishing knot here. Okay, and we'll stick that down through our little crewmate out the bottom. Use my hook to kind of pull that back up into place. We'll trim off the extra. And I'll sew his little face mask on the same way I did the backpack. It's just smaller, so my fingers tend to get in the way when I'm trying to do something smaller, especially for a video. So we'll sew that on the exact same way we did the backpack, and then he is all finished. All right. So make sure that you hit that like button for our little Among Us friends. Subscribe so you can see other videos as they come out. Make sure you check out some of the other videos that are already posted. There's some really cool things to make in there, including the slightly larger Among Us crewmate. There is also a tooth monster pattern that you could use to create an even larger Among Us character. You would just have to create a larger face shield and then make your backpack you know, large enough to fit on the back of that little monster pattern. And then it's all good. So thanks for watching, you guys. It means a lot for everyone that has already subscribed. It's awesome to see so many people kind of getting back into crochet and appreciating the art and craft that it takes to make these guys. So thank you. And if you have any requests, things you'd like to see me make, pop those in the comments. And I'll see you guys in the next video.